And welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Andy Richards. Your top stories on Wednesday, the 6th of December. KMTV exclusive. Kent Police call to thousands of incidents at hospitals and GP surgeries.
Well, actually, I'm shocked. I didn't realise there was that many. I know that that they are being called into A&Es and doctor surgeries, and I probably was thinking it's probably about 400 or 500 a year.
The mud that's as dangerous as quicksand. Fire crews practice rescue scenario in Medway.
Very quickly you can get very tired and obviously suffer from the cold as well.
Chocks away. 40-year mission to bring historic aircraft back home is complete.
The Bristol Blenem tended to get forgotten.
And in sport, checker trade controversy. Josh Parker's ghost goal cost Gills in the EFL trophy.
But first tonight, Kent Police have been called to more than 6,000 incidents at hospitals and GP surgeries over the last 3 years. Figures obtained exclusively by KMTV show that between 2015 and 2017, officers were called more than 5,000 times to Kent's hospitals. Louisa Britton has more.
Kent Police have been called out more than 6,000 times to medical facilities, including GP surgeries and hospitals across the county over the last 3 years.
Well, I think it's absolutely unacceptable that an emergency response should be required. An example where people have assaulted a member of the emergency services, whether that's a nurse, a paramedic, doctor, police officer, prison officer or firefighter. I've been quite consistent that that's unacceptable. But what we're seeing is a general trend here amongst society of a rise within violent crime, which has meant that the police have had to come out to more calls in order to support people within other sectors.
Figures obtained by KMTV from a Freedom of Information request made to Kent Police show that from January 2015 to November this year, officers have been called out to 6,287 incidents.
Well, actually, I'm shocked. I didn't realise there was that many. I know that that they are being called into A&Es and doctor surgeries, and I probably was thinking it's probably about 400 or 500 a year at max, and that would amaze me. But seeing it's in the thousand, that's horrendous. Should never, ever happen.
I've contacted hospitals across the county, including Medway Maritime, Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells, as well as East Kent Hospitals Trust, to talk about the figures, but they were unable to put anyone forward for interview.
Well, I spoke to a former nurse who'd worked in Kent for more than 30 years. She said she didn't want to be interviewed today, but she did say that she knew of several instances where Kent Police had been called to various hospitals, and said that medical practitioners are often reluctant to talk about the issue.
If you think that you're going to be abused, insulted, punched, pushed on an evening shift, whether it's in a doctor's surgery, whether it's in an A&E or whether it's just in a community hospital, I think that will put them off.
Looking at the figures in more detail, police were called out to hospitals more than 5,000 times, while officers went to surgeries more than 500 times. But what do people in Kent think about these figures?
Disgraceful, completely unacceptable. Doesn't matter who the staff are, it shouldn't happen, should it? People get frustrated, you can be cross, but at the end of the day they're trying to help.
One night we sat there in the A&E and an actual chair came across
through
where we were
from the
sitting,
A&E, you know,
chair
things like that
came across, you know, and there was elderly people in the beds in the corridors.
Although the figures show a decrease this year, it seems for those in the medical profession, any incident where police have to be called is one too many. This is Louisa Britton for KMTV.
So to talk a little bit more about the story, I'm joined by Dr. Gillian Spinks. So, Dr. Spinks, first of all, 6,000 incidents over the last 3 years. Everyone's been shocked who we've spoken to about those figures. What have you made of them?
I'm shocked as well. I have to say that I knew things were getting worse during my career, but to get up to that sort of number, it's very scary. You know, we are trying to help people in the health service, and in return we need a degree of courtesy, certainly not to be threatened or actually have physical violence against us.
Now, the figures are 5,000 at hospitals over the last 3 years, but there are 500 incidents at GP surgeries across Kent. What about that particular figure?
Again, equally shocking, because we haven't got the situation where in A&E they have things like people with drug problems or alcohol, or even people with acute psychiatric emergencies. It tends to be people just coming in, booking appointments. And it's not me that gets the problem, it's my poor receptionists on the front desk who get abuse aimed at them, and sometimes actual threats against themselves or their families. And And at that situation, we then are forced to actually call the police because we can't actually have that risk against our staff. We have a duty of care towards them.
Now, we've tried to speak to the various trusts around Kent today. Nobody really wants to make any comment at all about it. Where does it lie? Who needs to sort this problem out to stop all these call-outs by police to the various places?
Well, we'd like to say we need the public to think about what they do before they actually start being rude or aggressive and so on. The hospitals do need to respond as well. There's supposed to be zero tolerance in the NHS. Certainly in my practice, we have a notice about it and we follow it. If people do something, we will take action. And the police and the courts need to acknowledge, and I think people need to be hit hard with sort of financial or even going to jail if they are assaulting members of the services such as GPs, hospital doctors, nurses, or even things like ambulance men who also face assault.
Do you think we might see more security, more police actually on the ground at the various locations?
Well, often A&E now has a security guard either there or on very short notice. For a GP, it's not practical, although I do have a panic button linked to the police, so I can press a button and they will arrive within a very short time. So, you know, we're taking action about it, but this is a societal problem. Unless we can change the way people behave towards us, then we're going to continue to have problems.
Dr. Spinks, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. Now, almost 2,000 children in Kent will be homeless on Christmas Day. That's according to the charity Shelter. The report shows the extent of what's being described as a national scandal, as Medway tops the list with 619 children without a permanent roof over their heads. Earlier today, we spoke to Shelter about the situation in Kent.
In the run-up to Christmas, we're all looking forward to doing our Christmas shopping and thinking about what we're going to have for Christmas dinner, you know, getting excited for the festive period and spending time with our family and friends. But the reality is very, very different for the many, many thousands of homeless families and children across the country and in Kent who are, you know, just worrying about where they're going to be living. No child should ever have to wake up homeless on Christmas Day, let alone the amount that are you know, as you say, almost 2,000 in Kent and 128,000 across the country. So fortunately, we have legal protections in place that mean that children don't ever have to sleep on the street. So you won't see children out, you know, sleeping in sleeping bags on the pavement or anything like that. But sadly, there are many families with children who are facing homelessness this Christmas. So that means, you know, they have lost their home for whatever reason that might be, and they can't find another one. So they tend to be living in temporary accommodation, and often in the worst cases, that's in places like bed and breakfasts or hostels where they'll be sleeping in just a small room with all their family, all in one room, and kind of sharing kitchen and bathroom facilities with other people who are using the hostel. In an area such as Medway, you know, if private rents are particularly high, if private landlords say they don't want to rent to families or they don't want to rent to people who are receiving housing benefit, makes it extremely difficult for somebody to find a new place to live.
Now, crime stats have gone up by nearly 30% in Kent. That's just one of the findings of the Kent Police quarterly report that was out today. Officers highlighted some key issues for the force over the last few months. Police and Crime Commissioner Matthew Scott met with Chief Constable and his Deputy Paul Brandon to scrutinise various issues within Kent Police, including crime response times, spending and employment of minorities. However, concerns were raised over 101 call waiting times, which went up from 30 seconds to 3.5 minutes. Chief Superintendent Rachel Curtis says 999 calls have to take precedent.
999 calls will always be our priority. We will always respond to those as the priority, and we will then deal with the 101 calls, you know, as soon as we're able to. I think it's important to remember, though, that this increase of 26%, you know, largely is incidents that we've already known about. They would have already been in our system. This is a recording accuracy issue as opposed to a huge increase in incidents that we've actually got to attend.
Now, new research says we could soon be working just 4 hours a day, half the amount many of us are expected to be at work for at the moment. Futurist James Woolman says his research shows that robots will be doing the routine tasks so humans can focus on more creative work. Many have dismissed his theory, saying working hard is just as important to downtime for a fulfilling life. We asked shoppers in Rochester what they think about a shorter working day.
If everybody worked 4 hours, then everybody would have a job. There'd be no unemployment, and
it's just the salary. Could you live? could you support yourself and your family on a 4-hour day?
Well, I didn't think we'd ever get to a 37.5-hour working week, let alone a 4-hour working week. So things have changed for the better, but loads and loads of people still work loads and loads of hours.
I think a 4-hour working day sounds ideal, really, especially when I'm sitting here with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. I find it very hard as a creative to actually sit down and create for more than 4 hours.
I don't think people are productive in the 8 hours. I think you're only productive for about 2 or 3 hours of the day anyway. So why not shorten it, and then we can all go and enjoy ourselves.
Obviously, this issue of financing. So if you could work a 4-hour day and be paid for a full working day, fantastic. But the reality of that would be a challenge. So
it'd be pretty cool. For some people, I don't know about everyone would be good with it, like myself and other people who have like a kind of a public service job, but these kind of jobs are fun.
Shoppers in Rochester there. But what do you think? Would a 4-hour working day be better for a fulfilling life? Join the conversation by using the hashtag Kent Says. Still to come, controversy in the Checkatrade Trophy, how a perfectly good goal for the Gills was ruled out, meaning that the Kent side were knocked out. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. Now, a court's heard how a teenager accused of killing a homeless man near Maidstone confessed he kept beating him in the face because he thought it was funny. Razvan Surabu was killed in May this year. He'd been sleeping rough in a tent near the Luce Conservation Area. 3 men accused of his murder are Alex MacDonald, Charlie White and Jimmy Buckley. MacDonald and White have pleaded not guilty. Buckley has been ruled not fit to plea. It's been alleged witnesses overheard a conversation between MacDonald and White discussing the attack on the 21-year-old. Razvan's body was found at 7 in the morning on the 6th of May this year. Now, the M2 was closed for most of the morning because of a huge diesel spillage on the carriageway. 700 litres of the fuel was spread across the coastbound stretch when a lorry hit the central reservation and the tank split at around 4:15. The road was closed for almost 8 hours. Motorists faced gridlock throughout the morning, with drivers heading for Dover advised to use the M20, and diversions were in place via the A228. Luckily, nobody was injured. Kent Fire and Rescue Service are warning residents to be careful of dangerous mud. This morning, crews from Larkfield and Thameside gathered under the M2 in Medway to practice a rescue. Poppy Jeffrey went along.
It started with a call to report a dog walker had become stuck in the mud and ended with a fire crew rescue. If you were driving along the M2 near Medway, you might have seen the training exercise by Kent Fire and Rescue Service this morning. I'm coated head to toe in mud from the River Medway. It's not a mean feat getting someone out as well. If you get stuck in the mud, you might be needing the help of the Kent Fire and Rescue Service this winter. Larkfield's crew led the drill with their water safety unit, which specialise in rescues from water and unstable surfaces. The team was joined by colleagues from Thameside Fire Station for the rescue scenario near the Medway Valley Leisure Park in Chariot Way, Rochester. First, the crews donned their dry suits and life jackets to prepare to get into the water. They then used a mud path and swift water rescue equipment to reach the casualty. And finally, the walker was taken to safety. It's an important exercise for crews at this time of the year, as it gets colder and the tide starts to turn.
This does happen quite often. This type of rescue, unfortunately, occurs quite regularly, mainly because people think that they can go out on the mud. It looks stable, but in fact, underneath the top, it isn't. It's like a sort of a form of quicksand, really. And very quickly, you can get very tired and obviously suffer from the cold as well. Often people go out because they think their animals are trapped in mud and go out to rescue them, and again that's when they get in trouble, and often the pets can escape by themselves.
But what should you do if you get stuck in the mud?
It's best to raise the alarm as soon as possible to get us on the way. Obviously, most people try to get out, which sometimes you can do, and other times you can make yourself go in deeper in the sand. It just depends on the surface. Probably the best thing to do is, if you become really tired, is to make sure that you've raised the alarm and always make sure you've got a mobile phone and someone knows where you are if you're going to go in one of these areas. But I mean, for us, often it would be look at where you're going and really look at the mud, and it is quite an unstable surface. So if at all possible, to avoid going on the mud.
This is Poppy Jeffrey for KMTV in Rochester.
With news of how the Gills fared in their Checker Trade Trophy contest last night, here's Keelan with the sport.
Fellow League One side Oxford were the visitors to Priestfield in the last 32 of the EFL Trophy. The tournament continues to struggle with low attendances and controversy, as Leicester's under-21 side included £45 million worth of talent for their game with Scunthorpe last night. And there was also no short of controversy at Priestfield. Here's how the game unfolded. It had all started so well for the Gills. Scott Wagstaff exchanged passes with Josh Parker before he was brought down in the box. Mark Burns stepped up and sent Simon Eastwood the wrong way to give Gillingham the lead after just 9 minutes. The O's got themselves back in the contest before the break. Jack Payne has been very impressive so far this term, and his finish here was equally as impressive as he nabbed his 7th of the campaign. Gills pushed to go back in front in the second half. Tom Eaves came off the bench at the break and was denied by Eastwood. Then came the moment of controversy in the game. Josh Parker hit an absolute cracker into the top corner. However, no goal given. If you look at the replay, though, you can clearly see that the ball does cross the line. Gills robbed of a goal then, and in the second minute of stoppage time, they were punished. With the game drifting towards penalties, Alex Mowat produced an arrowed strike beyond Stuart Nelson to dump Gillingham out of the trophy. Josh Parker's ghost goal ultimately proving costly for Gillingham then. Hear from him in a moment, but firstly, here's a frustrated Steve Lovell.
I was disappointed with the 2 goals, both the same kind of goals that we conceded. We didn't get out and close the players down quick enough. We did for most of the game, but for them 2 occasions we didn't, and they scored. So it's fine margins.
I felt like we deserved to win the game, and then obviously within the space of, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, they go down the other end and score what I think is a very soft goal. You shouldn't have been able to get a shot in that position so late in the game. Maybe that's our fault for not managing the game in the right manner, considering there was maybe 1-2 minutes left.
I'll have more sport for you later on in the programme, including news of a Manager of the Month award for one of Kent's bosses and why snooker's Barry Hawkins has called his latest performance a disgrace. See you then.
Now the Kent Battle of Britain Museum has welcomed a special new addition to its collection. The rare Bristol Blenem Mark IV aircraft has been moved from Duxford Airfield in Cambridgeshire. Getting it back to the Hawkins Museum has been a passion project for many during the past 4 decades. With more details, here's Cameron Tucker.
Spitfires, the Hurricane, a Bolton Paul Defiant. The Kent Battle of Britain Museum houses many of the major players who fought for the skies in 1940. Now, the former RAF station has a new attraction, one which last flew out of Hawkinge more than 75 years ago.
It's a momentous day to achieve and bring it in today from Duxford. It's got a substantial remains of 4 different aircraft that we will actually build into one. The Bristol Blenem is incredibly rare. There's only one original example in existence in Finland.
People don't tend to realise, they think of Spitfires and Hurricanes on the German side, Messerschmitts and so on, but the Bristol Blenem tended to get forgotten. I mean, we never thought we'd get it, or an example of this plane. And it's only through David's diligence and sticking at it for a long time, tracking it down and getting hold of it, we've now got such an example, such a unique example.
The Bristol Blenem wasn't just used in Fighter Command during the Battle of Britain, it was also used in Bomber Command, the Training Command and Coastal Command. At the outbreak of the Second World War, it was the fastest plane in the RAF's inventory. And now that we have the fuselage and the wings here at the former RAF station at Hawkinge, we only have to wait for the cockpit, which will be arriving in just a few months from Canada. Getting a Bristol Blenem to finally land at the museum is the culmination of a dream held for nearly 4 decades by the museum's chairman David Brocklehurst and late founder and curator Mike Llewellyn.
I used to have banter with him where I'd say one day I'd acquire a Bristol Blenem, which I did in 2015, and a Bristol Blenem. He said it was impossible to acquire either of those aircraft. Today, finally, after 40 years personally, we actually have all 4 of the classic fighters of the Battle of Britain that's served in the RAF. Mike will be incredibly proud and chuffed for the museum, for the volunteers that make this museum so special, but he'll say to me, it's long overdue, I should have done it years ago, but finally today it's come to fruition.
The 800 pilots who flew in the Blenems during the Battle of Britain were known as the Few. With their famed aircraft now on display, visitors have a chance to find out how this band of airmen ensured victory for Britain. Cameron Tucker, KMTV, Hawkinge.
A reminder, you can watch Kent Tonight live and on catch-up at our website kmtv.co.uk. You can stay up to date with all the news, sport and weather from right across Kent. Whenever and wherever you are, you'll find breaking news, local features and repeats of our special programmes. Now, the X Factor winners, Raksu, will be on KMFM Breakfast tomorrow. Fresh from their win on Sunday night's final, the first boy band to win the show will be chatting to Gary and Laura in the morning. Already dominating the iTunes top 10 list, including their winner's song DeMello, the boys Ashley, Jamal, Miles and Mustafa will be telling the pair whether they've come back down to earth, and they'll also be telling them about the atmosphere in the X Factor house. The KMFM Breakfast Show with Gary and Emma is on from 6 a.m. and you can watch it live on KMTV. Now, Kent set for an Arctic blast of snow as temperatures plummet, according to the Met Office. Forecasters have told people in the county to expect flurries as part of an Arctic maritime air mass, which could hit over the weekend. We've already seen snow in the last 7 days, with showers throughout the county. But this time, some are predicting the snow will settle. But for now, let's take a look at what the weather's doing in the next couple of days. It will be cloudy across the county tonight with temperatures of around 8 or 9 degrees. Tomorrow morning we'll see a slight increase to about 10 or 11 with a few showers of rain. But the sun could come out in the afternoon with temperatures as low as 8. Looking to the weekend ahead, it's set to be very cold but sunny, especially on Saturday. Don't forget to watch out for that Arctic blast of snow which could be hitting Kent. Coming up after the break, the developers of Britain's biggest solar farm say they can't guarantee Kent's homes will be powered by it, even though it's to be built here. Don't go away. Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Andy Richards. Your top stories on Wednesday, the 6th of December. KMTV exclusive. Kent Police call to thousands of incidents at hospitals and GP surgeries.
Well, actually, I'm shocked. I didn't realise there was that many. I know that there's that they are being called into A&Es and doctor surgeries, and I probably was thinking it's probably about 400 or 500 a year.
The mud that's as dangerous as quicksand. Fire crews practice rescue scenario in Medway.
Very quickly you can get very tired and obviously suffer from the cold as well.
Chocks away, 40-year mission to bring historic aircraft back home is complete.
It's a momentous day to achieve and bring it in today from Duxford.
And in sports, Sonny rains down on Barry Hawkins as he's whitewashed in the UK Championships.
Now, figures obtained exclusively by KMTV show that Kent Police have been called to more than 6,000 incidents at hospitals, GP surgeries and medical facilities over the last 3 years. Between 2015 and 2017, officers were called to more than 5,000 times to Kent's hospitals. Louisa Britton has more.
Kent Police have been called out more than 6,000 times to medical facilities, including GP surgeries and hospitals across the county over the last 3 years. Figures obtained by KMTV from a Freedom of Information request made to Kent Police show that from January 2015 to November this year, officers have been called out to 6,287 incidents. I've contacted hospitals across the county, including Medway Maritime, Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells, as well as East Kent Hospitals Trust, to talk about the figures, but they were unable to put anyone forward for interview.
Well, actually, I'm shocked. I didn't realise there's that many. I know that there's that they are being called into A&Es and doctor surgeries, and I probably was thinking it's probably about 400 or 500 a year at max, and that would amaze me. But seeing it's in the thousands, that's horrendous. Should never, ever happen.
You can now have your say on plans to build the biggest solar park in Britain near Faversham as a public consultation has begun. The £400 million project could create energy for more than 100,000 homes, but we're being told not necessarily here in Kent. Harry Peet went to one of the meetings today and joins me now. So, Harry, what are some of the concerns that have come out?
Well, obviously a lot of us, and I'm sure our viewers at home, will agree that renewable energy is needed and lots more needs to be done to do that. But for the people who live in the villages surrounding where this solar park will be built in Cleve Hill, so in the village of Graveney in particular, they've been a bit worried about some short-term issues, including the amount of traffic that will be on the roads when the construction starts. But also the long-term impact. So the Council for the Campaign for Protection of Rural England in Kent, they've expressed concern about wildlife, which is on the marshes where this solar panel park could be built. And speaking to the company behind the Cleve Hill Solar Park today, they said that they are taking into consideration some of the environmental impacts.
Today we've heard from a number of people who have an interest in the area because of the bird species in the area, and they belong to local ornithological groups. We're really interested to hear from people what they see and what's important to them. We've been conducting bird surveys for the past 4 years, so we have a lot of data and knowledge about the site, and we're going through that data and analysing it together with local groups such as the Kent Wildlife Trust, the RSPB and Natural England.
So where can people go and have a look?
Well, once Kent Tonight's finished, you've still got about an hour or so to go to the assembly rooms in Faversham to finish having your say in the consultation that's been going on there all day. There's also plans on display in Maidstone Town Hall, as well as in Sheppey and in the areas around Sittingbourne as well. So there's plenty of places in that kind of area where you go in the Town Hall, go in the library, and you can see the plans for the solar park there.
Harry, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Now, don't forget that you can keep up to date on all things going on in Kent by visiting our website, kmtv.co.uk. You can check out some of our latest stories from across the county, like this video from last week on a scheme at the Medway Hospital, which will ensure every patient on Christmas Day receives a gift.
Medway Maritime Hospitals turned into Santa's Grotto ahead of the festive season. It's part of a new venture brought in by the lead chaplain.
We're hoping to provide stockings for every patient in the hospital on Christmas Day, recognising it's a difficult day to be in hospital, away from family and friends, and for some people who don't have family or friends, so that everyone will receive some gifts on Christmas morning. Some presents have already come in, so we're wrapping up today, but also we need a lot more gifts. We have a large number of beds in the hospital, and so we're hoping that the community also will respond to this and be able to donate some gifts of just small items of toiletries, gloves, scarves, socks, just small things that will fit into a stocking to help us with this.
From raffles to appeals, the hospital has got into the Christmas spirit of giving. Companies and volunteers from all over Kent have contributed to the campaign.
The presence that we've had today from our staff and our volunteers it's amazing.
We couldn't have done it without them. We couldn't have done it without them. They've been a tremendous support, so, at every stage.
It's estimated 750 patients will pass through the hospital's doors on Christmas Day, with staff looking to ensure all have something in their stockings.
We have normal admissions, so people that come in that are unwell would normally be here, and patients that haven't been able to get home for Christmas because they're not well enough still stay with us. And the nurses do everything to try their best, and the doctors, and we do a few sing-alongs and things like that with them. But actually having a present for them, particularly if they haven't got family members or friends that can visit them on Christmas Day or Boxing Day, just makes a whole difference, makes them feel really valued. So I think they really appreciate it.
Christmas has come early here at Medway Maritime Hospital, and I've joined staff and volunteers for a spot of wrapping. You could say it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Cameron Tucker, KMTV, Medway.
Next tonight, time is running out to save the coast of Sheppey. That's the view of Eastchurch Gap Erosion Action Group. The campaigners are concerned that the cliffs on the island are in danger of being destroyed by the sea. Malcolm Newell from the group wants more to be done to save the coastline. I'm happy to say he joins me now. So Malcolm, thanks very much for joining us. How important is this issue to the island?
Well, it's important that we don't keep losing land. We're losing land, and it will be homes, people's homes. There's 15 homes at risk at the moment. We can do something about it. We've done something about it already, which is environmental friendly matting at the top, which covers the ground, which takes up the moisture with planting and trees and the normal things you would do to protect the land. But we're losing it at the bottom to the sea. It's not actually sea erosion, it's land erosion. You get the slips that go into the sea, and obviously the sea washes away. But what we need is something put at the bottom. They use these metal cages with stones or whatever. We did have nice groins in our gap. It's called Eastchurch Gap because it's been there for donkey's years. It's a lovely place. My home, I took it on as my home in 2001. I love the place, but we had some kind person actually steal the groins by coming down and cutting them down with a chainsaw and then removing them early hours of the morning to make garden furniture. They were caught. They were reported to Swellborough Council and the police. They did absolutely nothing about it. So we're left now with no protection whatsoever. And I'm afraid that if you've got protection in place, that would give us, through the longshore drift, a little bit of protection and build up the beach. Now the beach is gone, totally flat, so the waves are going to hit the bottom of the cliffs.
And we have spoken to the Environment Agency, and they say they'll allow natural cliff retreat with no active intervention. They say there's a public consultation on a flood and coastal risk for the area and welcome any feedback. What would you say to that?
Well, I attended that meeting, and I thought, yes, some of the things that they were talking about, yeah, that's all right talking about it, but it's getting off their bottoms and doing something about it. The interest of the people there is to have their homes. They've done nothing. Nothing has ever been done about it. And I think it's time we did something about it.
Malcolm, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Now, new research has come out today saying by the year 2050, we'll all be working just 4-hour days. Futurist James Woolman says his research shows that robots will be doing the routine tasks so humans can focus on more creative work. Here's what shoppers in Rochester think work will be like in 30 years' time.
I'd like to think in 30 years' time that working life would be a bit more family oriented, that people would have more access to better childcare and to a society where we really look after families.
Actually, I think it's pretty scary because even now self-checkouts and this, that and the other, a lot of people, that's the only contact they have with other human beings, like the older generation. So I think it could make a lot more people lonely and have no human contact at all.
I don't think there'd be enough other things to do in someone's life. They need to be working. or they need to be doing something, if it's volunteering or a good leisure activity.
Yeah, probably less people, more automated systems, everything done online.
I think people will be more able to pick and choose what they do. It'll be more vocational rather than just for the money.
I think in the future we're working more towards remote working, so I think we'll see a lot less of office-based roles and more flexible hours and people working from home or from elsewhere.
Shoppers in Rochester there, but what do you think working life will be like in the future? You can join the conversation by using the hashtag #KentSays. When we come back, we'll be rounding up the stories making the business headlines this week, and Keenan will be here with more sport. We'll see you soon. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV on Wednesday the 6th of December, in case you missed it. Kent Police call out. The county's police force called to almost 6,000 incidents at hospitals and GP surgeries in the last 3 years.
If you think that you're going to be abused, insulted, punched, pushed on an evening shift, whether it's in a doctor's surgery, whether it's in an A&E or whether it's just in a community hospital, I think that will put them off.
The mud that's as dangerous as quicksand. Fire crews practice rescue scenario in Medway.
Often people go out because they think their animals are trapped in mud and go out to rescue them, and again that's when they get in trouble.
Bristol Blenem back home. Kent Battle of Britain Museum welcomes a special aircraft.
People don't tend to realise, they think of Spitfires and Hurricanes, but the Bristol Blenem tended to get forgotten.
And in sport, Pep dumps Gills out of the cup. Clotette's Oxford side win at Priestfield in the Checkatrade Trophy.
Time now for your pick of the papers with a look at what's making the news in print, online and radio across Kent. Earlier on today, I spoke to KMTV's Dwight Diaz, who started off with a story of a small shop taking on an international superpower.
So our first story is about the owners of the Maxim's Pet Shop in Ramsgate, who weren't too pleased with Virgin Media because they conducted construction works outside their shop for 2 weeks, and they said the shop owners didn't receive any notice of that. Now, they say this had a real impact on their business because they blocked off the parking bays, which in turn led to fewer customers coming in because they said it's a busy road, people drive past, and if they can't get a spot, they just keep going and they won't come into the shop. And that's what the owners are essentially saying, is that they had fewer customers. They even posted something on Facebook saying, "Thank you, Virgin Media, for ruining our business. It's a case of the big boys getting richer and the small ones going under." Virgin Media has been contacted for a comment. They haven't yet gotten back, but they've since moved the construction side. But as I said, they say there's been a real impact on their business.
What about your second story, Dart?
Our second story is one for anyone who likes to crank up the volume when they're listening to music in their homes.
I bet you do.
No, sometimes. The council. A council has seized hundreds of thousands of pounds in stereo equipment after a woman refused to stop playing loud music and singing. Her name is Marie Dankova, and her neighbours complained to the Shepway District Council about late night music. It was a bit too loud, and they warned her to lower the volume. She received letters complaining, saying please lower your volume, which were ignored. And the council obtained a warrant to investigate and they investigated first and then got a warrant to seize the goods. So we have several speakers, a DVD player, as well as a very big television.
That's definitely going to make some noise, isn't it?
Absolutely. So that looks like quite a big sound system. So I'm sure the neighbours had a reason to complain. Councillor Stuart Peel said that it's possible to enjoy your favourite music and listen to whatever you'd like without disturbing the peace of your neighbours. And he just said that she had her chances to lower the volume, just chose not to. So there we go.
And your third story?
Our third story is about a company from Bredgar. And if you're not sure where Bredgar is, it's near Sittingbourne. They have built and installed what they believe is the tallest chandelier in Europe. And here it is in all its glory. It is 11 metres high and weighs about 250 kilograms. So this thing is massive.
Wow, that is huge.
Exactly. It's comprised of 225,000 individual crystals, as you can see there. And this is the lighting. This light is the crowning glory of the multi-million-pound refurbishment of the Hyde Imperial Hotel in Hyde. So quite a big piece of work there.
Duart, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, a reminder, you can watch Kent Tonight live and on catch-up at our website, kntv.co.uk. You can stay up to date with all the news, sport and weather from right across Kent, whenever and wherever you are. You'll find breaking news, local features and repeats of our special programmes. With the results roundup from last night's football across Kent, here's Keelan with the sport. But first of all, Keelan, a bit of snooker. Barry Hawkins, not a happy man, is he?
No, not at all. Certainly last night he wasn't. He was dumped out of the UK Championship 6-0. He lost to Thailand's Sunny Akani, and it really has just emphasised what a poor season he's had. He's had some issues away from the table, and he's transformed that to his form on it as well. And yesterday he'd been playing pretty well in the first couple of rounds, building up into the tournament, but that 6-0 drubbing by the 22-year-old yesterday was really a sort of last nail in the coffin for him. And some of the words that he used afterwards to describe his performance were disgusting, painful and horrible. So
wow.
He was pretty disgusted by his own display. He said it was the worst performance I've ever produced. He also went on to say that anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And he said that beforehand he'd been playing well, but just in this case, 6-0 when you lose to when you're number 8 in the world, as Barry Hawkins is. He was favourite to win. Not only did he lose, but he lost by 6 frames to 0. So he needs to get back into the practice rooms, he's been saying, and hopefully he'll be able to turn his form around. In football now, and there were a few Kent sides in action last night. Gillingham went out of the Checkatrade Trophy after losing 2-1 in the last minute at home to Oxford. In the FA Trophy third qualifying round, Margate went out on penalties to Bath City after it finished 2-2 following extra time. In the Bostik Premier, Tunbridge Angels moved up to 9th after they came from 2-0 down to defeat Dorking Wanderers by 3-2. And in the Bostik South, Sittingbourne were beaten 3-0 at fellow playoff hopefuls Walton Casuals. Staying with non-league football, and Folkestone Invicta boss Neil Cugley has been named as the Bostik Premier Division's Manager of the Month for November. Invicta picked up an impressive 5 wins last month, including triumphs over Leatherhead and Enfield Town, which saw them rise as high as second in the table. A 2-1 defeat at Wingate and Finchley ended their unbeaten run last weekend, meaning they now sit 4th. Neil Cugley's side have won 7 out of 8 home games this season and host Harrow and Worthing in their next 2 games. You're up to date on sports news for today. I'll have more for you at the same time tomorrow.
And now we'll have the weather. It will be cloudy across the county tonight with temperatures around 8 or 9 degrees. Tomorrow morning we'll see a slight increase to about 10 or 11 with a few showers of rain. But the sun could come out in the afternoon with temperatures as low as 8. Looking to the weekend ahead, it's set to be very cold but sunny, especially on Saturday. Don't forget to watch out for that Arctic blast of snow, which could be hitting Kent too. Coming up after the break is our business show, Chris & Co. I'll be speaking to Chris Price about what to expect in this latest episode in a minute. But first, here's Josie Hannett with a roundup of what's making the headlines for businesses in the county.
Toys R Us has confirmed it will be closing its Tunbridge Wells branch. The shop is one of at least 26 nationally to shut its doors. The move puts 800 jobs at risk. The toy retailer at Great Lodge Retail Park could stop trading in spring next year. The store in Chatham is expected to remain open. The company said there will be no disruption to shopping over the Christmas and New Year period. The company's made losses in the past few years and hopes that this is a way of saving money. Shock redundancies at Saga have left around 100 people jobless just before Christmas. The over 50s holiday and insurance company, which has its headquarters in Folkestone, delivered the unexpected announcement to its staff last week. Security reportedly stood over staff as they cleared their desks before being marched out of the building. A recruitment freeze is also thought to have been started, although this hasn't been confirmed. News Today says the company's issued a profit warning. And panto wars have descended on the county as a disagreement leaves a bitter taste between two productions in the same town. This Christmas, Maidstone will host two professionally produced pantomimes for the first time, yet the production of Peter Pan opening at the town's TV studios could have been left on the cutting room floor after finding itself without a venue for the show, despite bosses having signed £140,000 of contracts with suppliers. The Hazlitt show Cinderella has reported an increase in ticket sales so far this year.
So Chris joins me now. First of all, Chris, some big news about a housing development down in Dover today.
That's right, or the housing development that looks like it may never be. So this is in the Farthinglow Valley near Dover, and plans to build up to around 600 homes that were put forward by developers, and then subsequently given planning permission by the District Council. Now, the Campaign to Protect Rural England launched an appeal against that planning approval with the High Court in December 2015. And basically today we've had the end of a long rumble of legal proceedings that have gone from that High Court, then to the Court of Appeal. And now today the Supreme Court has ruled on that planning application and said that, and actually upheld a decision by the Court of Appeal, which said that Dover District Council was wrong to give planning approval to that development because it didn't give adequate legal reasoning to build all those homes on what is an area of outstanding natural beauty. So that's protected greenbelt land. So the Dover District Council is saying, obviously, it's disappointed with the decision, is going to look again at its housing policy. The developers of the scheme are also saying that they're going to be reviewing what their plans are going forward, and they're disappointed. But the Campaign to Protect Rural England, they're absolutely delighted and feel like they've won a major victory for protecting Greenbelt in Kent.
But the councils are, in this climate, under an awful lot of pressure to get these houses built, though, aren't they?
That's it. So they do feel kind of between a rock and a hard place. So you've got councils from one end, from the government, getting huge pressure. Sajid Javid, the community secretary, saying that he wants councils to be building more, and potentially he's going to up Kent's overall housing target by 10,000 over the course of the period up to 2031. And then on the other end, councils are facing pressure from pressure groups, community groups who want to have their area protected, so they're in a tough position.
Well, Chris will be back after the break with that and more, but for now, that's just about it from me this evening. There's more news just for Kent throughout the evening. It's goodbye from me. Goodbye.